Good afternoon, and what a pleasure and what an honor it is for me to stand before you in this lovely, sunny, nice auditorium. And it's also a pleasant day here in San Francisco. I didn't expect it to be so bright. Delhi is hot, and we have the Vice President with his family also in Delhi, has had a meeting with the Prime Minister. I'm here to talk to you on laying the foundation for developed India, that is Viksit Bharat by 2047. So I'll make a formal address, post which I understand a professor would hold an interactive session with you. I look forward to that. So indulge me with this formal address that I'd like to do on the topic. India's journey to become a Viksit Bharat by 2047 is not merely an aspiration, but a shared national mission powered by a vision for inclusive, sustainable, and innovation led growth. Despite the pandemic shock and a banking crisis, our progress over the past decade, anchored in strong macroeconomic fundamentals and steady reforms, gives us the confidence and direction for the road ahead. As a result, India has risen from the world's 10th largest economy to the fifth largest in just 5 years, a clear sign of our growing strength and global relevance. However, for several countries, the impact of the pandemic on their growth and growth prospects lingers even as the domestic growth suffers further shocks from unprecedented external competition. Naturally, there has been a threefold increase in new trade restrictions since 2019 as countries advanced and emerging strive to protect domestic production and jobs. Unsurprisingly, global trade and investment landscapes are being reimagined to bring about better balance between externally led growth and domestic growth, between Main Street and the Wall Street, and between energy transition and energy security. India relates to these developments. At first glance, these developments appear formidable, and yet they are full of possibility. New opportunities for deeper participation present themselves. The United States and India have enjoyed a long standing economic collaboration, which can be strengthened to enable industry participation and partnership and investments in several key sectors: semiconductors, nuclear power generation, quantum computing, and pharmaceuticals come to my mind as frontier areas of collaboration. Domestically, over the next 2 decades, sustaining India's growth momentum calls for a fresh approach grounded in bold reforms, stronger domestic capacities, renewed institutional partnership, and adaptive strategies suited for the evolving global landscape. The last two union budgets have laid the groundwork for this transformation with a clear multi sectoral policy agenda. Manufacturing is a force multiplier for the services sector growth and not so much the other way around. Manufacturing binds societies and leads and lends cohesion to communities by providing employment, opportunities, and financial strength to communities. In the post-COVID world, manufacturing enhances national security also. In India, too, as we strengthen our foundations for long term growth, manufacturing emerges as a key engine for transformation. Manufacturing has historically been a cornerstone of the economic transformation of nations from 19th century Britain to 21st century East Asia. It creates a forward and backward linkages, catalyzes skilling, and pushes demand for infrastructure and governance reforms. For India, scaling up manufacturing is essential to absorb a youthful workforce, reduce import dependencies, and build competitive global supply chains. Physical infrastructure enables manufacturing to grow by putting markets, both local and global, within the reach. Over the past decade, a significant thrust on infrastructure development has also created a strong foundation for manufacturing led growth by bolstering investor confidence. This has been enabled by a more than four-fold increase in the Union government's capital expenditure between 2017-18 and 25-26 budget. Expanding the national highways network, building airports, better rail connectivity, and a sharp reduction in port turnaround times have all contributed to a more efficient logistics network. As a result, India's ranking in the World Bank's Logistic Performance Index has improved from 54 in 2014 to 38 in 2023. Second, a vibrant and thriving network of small and medium enterprises is essential for domestic manufacturing to grow. Our government has undertaken numerous initiatives to support the MSMEs, from easing access to credit, redefining size thresholds, facilitating prompt payment from large buyers, and simplifying compliance burdens. The Open Network for Digital Commerce, launched in April 2022, has successfully onboarded more than 764,000 vendors across 616 cities in India. 616 cities in India. Our next focus is reducing regulatory frictions, digitizing approvals, and integrating MSMEs into global value chains. Special support to women led and rural enterprises will help enhance economic opportunities and ensure more inclusive growth. Startups and innovation form the cornerstone of the India US relationship. On the one hand, India is a leading exporter of startup acumen to the US. For instance, a report by Indiaspora and BCG shows that Indian first generation immigrants founded 72 unicorns between 2018 and 2023. These unicorns were worth at least 195 billion US dollars in valuation and employed 55,000 people, nearly 55,000 people. On the other hand, the US has been foundational to India's startup growth journey. Not only is the US a large investor in Indian startups, but it has also helped co create the Global Capability Center as a landscape in India. More than 65% of the GCCs in India have their headquarters in the United States. These GCCs provide high value added bespoke services in areas such as R&D, management consulting, and auditing. While the US is a mature startup hub which has developed over 50 to 60 years, India's startup journey is a nascent one. Over the course of last decade, The government's focus was on reducing the cost of entrepreneurial risk taking by removing regulatory and infrastructural barriers. For instance, around 57 regulations have been simplified for startups. As a result, India now ranks second globally in innovation quality among middle income economies, with top rankings in the quality of scientific publications and universities. Since the Startup India initiative of 2016, stability in the startup system has been enhanced through over 50 reforms in areas related to raising capital, ease of doing business, a host of tax benefits, reducing compliances, relaxing credit repayment policies, and intellectual property rights, fast tracking of the IPR process. The fund of funds and the creating and the credit guarantee scheme for startups support seed funding and successive credit needs. In the recent budget 24-25, angel tax for startups was done away with to reduce costs for the startups. Government also provides an R&D platform for high-tech sectors through schemes such as Atal Innovation Mission, METI Startup Hub, the scheme for technology incubation and development of entrepreneurs called TIDE 2.0, among various others. Entrepreneurs are assisted in marketing and networking with corporate entities, industry associations, government departments, and even public sector undertakings. Budget 24-25, sorry, Budget 24-25 explicitly states innovation, research, and development as an area of priority while charting the roadmap to Viksit Bharat. The budget also sought to operationalize the Anusandhan National Research Fund for prototype developments. Further, a financing pool of 1 trillion rupees was allocated for intensifying private sector research. Successfully scaling up businesses calls for skilled workforce. With nearly 65% of its population under 35, India has an unprecedented opportunity to reap a demographic dividend. But this requires matching education and skilling with demands of Industry 4.0. India aims to educate and empower a generation that will not only work in new industries but also lead them. The National Education Policy 2020 is a step in this direction. Its focus on experimental learning, digital fluency, and interdisciplinary thinking lays a strong foundation. Equitable access to modern infrastructure, faculty training, and industry aligned curricula will determine outcomes. In rural and unserved areas, digital learning and modernized classrooms are becoming a reality, not an aspiration anymore. Importantly, our skilling agenda is inclusive. We encourage greater participation of women in the workforce and are committed to eliminating the hurdles to women's employment. Ensuring workplace safety, equal opportunity, and access to finance for women entrepreneurs will enrich the workforce, strengthen social equality, and so on. Prudent fiscal management will be one of the most important pillars of India's drive towards Viksit Bharat. In the medium to long run, we are keen to manage our fiscal policy in such a way as to strike a comfortable saving investment balance and a strong external account position, while also leaving adequate scope for our private sector enterprises to mobilize the required investable resources at reasonable cost. As evidenced by our fiscal track record since COVID, we have been focused on fiscal consolidation. In 2020-21, we promised to more than halve the fiscal deficit. We have delivered on that promise as the federal government's deficit ratio has declined from 9.2% of the GDP to a budgeted 4.4% of GDP this financial year. The high quality of fiscal consolidation is reflected in the increased share of capital expenditure over the years. Alongside the reduction in debt and deficit, the government's capital expenditure as percentage of GDP increased from 2.1% to 3.1% in 2025-26 compared to 2020-21 when it was 2.1%. We have also announced a glide path to medium-term consolidation. We see government as an enabler. Unleashing the productive forces I have mentioned so far requires broad-based deregulation and an emphasis on trust-based governance. Over the last decade, we have undertaken structural reforms, rationalizing over 20,000 compliances, decriminalizing business laws, and digitizing public services to reduce friction. Our experience with implementing the Business Reform Action Plan by different elected state governments has demonstrated that deregulation is a powerful catalyst for industrial growth. We remain committed to further simplifying regulation and processes to reduce business costs, particularly for MSMEs, and enhance productivity. Flexible labor laws, transparent land markets, and simplified tax regimes must converge to create a seamless, competitive environment. Achieving this vision will require sustained collaboration between the center and the state governments. To conclude, as we lay the foundation for a developed India, we must stay committed to long-term goals without losing sight of present realities. The global order is changing. That poses challenges but also opportunities. We must be prepared to tackle the former while seizing the latter. Domestically, growth, jobs, sustainability, and inclusion are not competing goals. They are interdependent objectives that must be pursued harmoniously. A Viksit Bharat will be shaped not only by the government but by the collective effort of every citizen. This vision calls upon us to think boldly, act inclusively, and stay resilient and flexible. Thank you.